Now I'd love to really get into the holiday season and what we've been seeing in the stats, which has been very interesting. We looked at both the 2023 holiday season, which is a complete data set, and as well as this holiday season, the 2024 holiday season, which isn't fully complete yet because chargebacks come in several months after the transaction was made. So we're still seeing the volumes of chargebacks coming in for 2024. So the first interesting trend that we've seen in chargebacks this in 2023, and it looks to be similar in 2024, is the increase in chargeback volumes during the holiday season. We see this starting to increase in November, December, as well as in January. There's an interesting point to see because, as I mentioned earlier, as transactions increase, chargebacks usually increase along with it, and most merchants are receiving higher volumes of transactions during this time. Pedro, I'd love to hear from you. What are you guys seeing around your chargebacks during this period of time?
Yeah, generally speaking, and not just in the company that I work for, but like in previous experience, we definitely see when there are like seasonality and peak season that definitely chargebacks take over based on kind of an organic way of operating. You are generating more transactions and therefore you could potentially see in those kinds of spikes because you are generating more. So definitely we are seeing a combine of different types of chargebacks. So not just fraud chargebacks, but also friendly fraud chargebacks. And yeah, so it's interesting to see how you can tackle them and how you can actually kind of deal with them. But I think what's also like very important here is just to work through preparation before you get to the seasonality, where basically like by cooperating with internal stakeholders along with your partners, you can definitely have a good protection of your ecosystem and try to minimize as much as possible these kind of spikes that you might experience during this time of the year. And I think it's very important to understand why you are receiving those cases, why you're receiving these disputes that can end up converting into chargebacks, because that then can prepare you for the next year to actually know where you can start tackling these issues, whether it's to improve your communication with your users, to improve the description of your items, to actually improve your anti-fraud protection by tweaking your risk rules or how you are operating there. You could also get into some monitoring programs through the different card schemes such as Visa and MasterCard, which could ultimately translate into impacting negatively into your payment performance. So it's important that you keep these chargebacks also under control and you work towards that throughout the year to make sure that you can protect your ecosystem as much as possible.
Great. The next insight that's really interesting that we saw is that the average transaction value per case, so not only the volumes, but the average transaction value per case actually increases during the holiday season. This increase, Pedro, you seem to say that you have similar stats on your end. I'd love to hear your insights on this stat.
Yes, one of the potential rational reason for that is that due to the amount of discounts and yeah discounts that are being experienced in the e-commerce or like even in offline like in stores, like consumers tend to buy multiple items with one single purchase, which actually makes the value of the transaction higher than usual because they take advantage of that. And of course there is more willingness to purchase power because because of this psychology of you are buying cheaper, and that can definitely translate into these results for sure. And this is what it's been seen throughout the retail and throughout the different analysis and studies that I look recurrently.
And the last item that is really interesting around the holiday season is really around the fraud reason code chargebacks. We see definitely an increase in this reason code during this time of year. Do you see something similar in your stats, Pedro?
Yeah, so what we are seeing is definitely like a combination of both. What can happen during the holiday season is that also fraudsters are taking advantage of the frenzy of purchase that and transactions that are happening across the ecosystem, and try always to find black holes to actually, test out stolen cards, and that can definitely generate this spike in fraudulent transactions, which ultimately translates into chargebacks. I mean, one clear example is what it's called carding, which is basically fraudsters through bots are testing out for low value transactions, stolen cars that they got into the dark web. So that definitely can generate those spikes that you are discussing. But don't also forget about the friendly chargebacks that are also pretty pretty relevant. And I think those are also that you, as the merchant, you can actually tackle kind of and try to protect your ecosystem as much as possible, because you know your business the most, and you know how you could potentially come up with different procedures, solutions, updates, communication, and workforce internal with your internal teams to actually overcome these cases. While you expect the whole ecosystem to be super standardized, there are a lot of players that intervene through a dispute case or a chargeback case, starting from the cardholder to the cardholder bank to the network to the bank who acts for you as the acquirer. And while we all try to stick to the rules, it's true that those bad remorses could happen disguised as a fraud transactions, and it's important that you keep this in mind, and that definitely could explain part of these spikes that you are seeing here as well. What we are also seeing is are the chargebacks due to items not received, not as described, or damaged. So this is what it's important to actually make sure that the description that you use for the items that are being sold are correct, and also that you work with your partners such as the carriers to make sure that whenever an item is being picked, for instance in our case from the seller, is being delivered to the buyer in timely manner, so you kind of avoid these kinds of things. And this is kind of lead me to kind of one of the arguments that I was saying, that is important that you work not just with your internal stakeholders but also with your partners to make sure that this can be done properly, so you avoid those kinds of cases.
Great, thank you so much. So let's wrap up with a few takeaways from each one of us when dealing with chargebacks in the holiday shopping season. My three takeaways for are first, to make sure you have the proper manpower or automation in place to deal with these high volumes. The problem is when volumes get high, if you don't have the manpower, you're leaving chargebacks on the table, which means you're leaving money on the table. This could be millions of dollars for many of the merchants that we work with. The second piece is having strong customer support during this time. This can both decrease the chargebacks from happening in the first place, but also customer support communication. If you did everything according to the rules as a merchant, then you can use those as pieces of information in your evidence. And the last piece is really having very clear return policies and refund policies. Having that can help customers go to you as the merchant instead of going and posting a chargeback, but also using your policies in your evidence to show that everything was done according to your policies that the customer approved will definitely help strengthen your evidence. Pedro, what are your main takeaways?
Sure. So for me, pretty much in line with what you're saying, I would definitely encourage a strong communication, because that definitely can give you a lot of room for improvement and for prevention. The second one is very important to monitor on a daily basis what is happening, and being flexible to prevent any potential trend that you are detecting, so that doesn't happen in the future. So data is also like a key in your metrics for the monitoring. And And lastly is plan and implement throughout the year the learnings that you've done throughout the season, the holiday season. And again, which basically could involve like revisit your terms and conditions, FAQs, work with your customer service to make sure that the information and the relationship with your end users is spot on, and also revisit like the different procedures that you have in place that might require also like improvements, so like when the next time comes around you are better prepared for it.
Great. Thank you so much, Pedro, for participating in this session.